having me.
Absolutely.
This is gorgeous. Cheers.
Cheers.
May we? Cheers.
Meeting you and our coffee meeting this summer was one of like the highlights of my summer. So thank you.
You are so sweet. That was so fun, and I feel like I'm still learning the north side. So it's been exciting to explore it with friends. But thank you for joining me today. We are here for a founder to founder with Kristin, Patrick. Missing one of our other founders, but we are going to celebrate all that you've created nonetheless. We are sitting in your retail space, Carmel. You have 2 locations, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Other ones in Broad Ripple?
No, the other one's on the other side of Carmel, in the village of West Clay.
Was there a Broad Ripple one at one point?
Well, that we posted a little teaser on social media, and we're working on it.
Okay.
Working on South Broad Ripple, Meridian, Kessler. But like we were just talking a little bit ago, commercial real estate is a journey.
It is, and we'll jump into that. But before we jump into it, I want to know all about you, a little bit about how we got started, and then I'll ask you more about that origin story.
All right. Well, it's so fun that we're meeting here because in many ways, East Side of Carmel feels like full circle. So I grew up Carmel schools, kindergarten through high school. I went to Clay Junior High. Well, that's right. I'm showing my age. It's now Clay Middle School, which is just a short walk. We actually see quite a few middle schoolers around here. Once the school year commences, they all, between the Starbucks and the racks.
Could see that.
And then I went to IU Bloomington. And that, I guess you could say, is part of my alcohol journey.
Yeah.
Started in Bloomington, or where I developed a taste for alcohol.
And I imagine you're not alone in that.
I've learned that, but definitely not alone. And then actually relocated to San Diego. So I lived there for 4 years. So I graduated from IU around 2000. Lived in San Diego for 4 years, worked in book publishing. And then I moved up to Los Angeles and got my master's of library science. Went to UCLA, loved Southern California. Just a dreamy landscape, perfect weather, loved the culture, loved Southern California, but I missed my family terribly. So I came back. Where I've been working in libraries now for the last 20 years in public education, but lived downtown for a long time, loved downtown Indianapolis, and then relocated up to the north side. And now I'm not far from the store, but it does feel wild when we opened this store 2 years ago. Again, like I said, full circle, the idea that this was sort of my neighborhood growing up. Have definitely made some stops along the way, but love this area of town.
I love that. I'm starting to think that Circle City is not just Circle City for our downtown, because every time I meet new people, they have either a family connection or like they've been here before, and they're always like, it's full circle. And I'm like, that's why we're Circle City, because people come back.
Well, I'm definitely stealing that. I love that.
But so this is Loren AF Beverages. I feel like when I first saw Loren AF, I wasn't totally sure what it meant. And then I got to learn more about it, and I've had several beverages supplied by you all in Maven Space. So tell us, what is AF about it?
Well, we weren't really trying to be clever when we came up with it. We really were coming up with this. We just want to come up with a straightforward name. So again, the vision was to have a dedicated retail store for alcohol-free beverages.
And that is what AF is.
That's what the AF is. Alcohol-free wine, alcohol-free beer, alcohol-free spirits, and this category of functional beverages. And at the time when this project was coming together, my sister, my business partner, and we lost our dad. And he was just such a wonderful force in our lives. We adored him, just an amazing dad. And so as a tribute to him, we decided to name the store after him. Now, granted, he had a cool name. His name was, Loren.
Yeah.
It was a name he did not like growing up. Sort of learned to appreciate later in life, but we felt like it made a great name.
Yeah.
And then we wanted something really straightforward, just like, okay, we're a beverages store. We're not just like an alcohol, AF beverages.
Right.
So again, the AF thing, people ask us about it, but really that was not the intention. But I suppose it in some ways has worked in our favor. Again, a play on words.
Yeah.
But that's where the name comes from.
I love that. I mean, you could spin it any which way, and I'm in marketing, so pardon me here, but I think AF has different connotations, but being alcohol-free, and we talked about this a little bit when we met up. We met through Matchbox and talked a lot about like our founder story and like our mission and like why we do what we do, and naming the business after your father, showing up, like you're not trying to sugarcoat anything, like you're talking about your stories, you're talking about this space that you're curating for people who can still have drinks and still have fun and do it in a really fun way. I mean, when we were picking out the drinks, I'm obsessed with this branding and this packaging.
Packaging is
gorgeous.
Huge. It's huge.
It's gorgeous.
We're very, very picky.
But it's straightforward and it's fun and it's genuine. And so I feel like Loren AF still works in that favor, which I think is so cool.
Well, thank you. We, part of our entrepreneur story is where one of our next chapters is probably we are thinking about a rebrand.
That's exciting.
It is. It's terrifying. So do you have any good let us know you have any good ideas.
Yeah.
But part of it was, just thinking about, bigger picture. When we started, the idea was, okay, we're gonna fulfill this dream of always having our own store, make enough to pay the bills, have fun along the way, spread some joy. We didn't anticipate people getting it so quickly, or so many people being interested, or doing as well as we have. And so things have taken off in a way. We're like, okay, now we need to start thinking about trademark. And so we connected with just a fantastic trademark attorney who's kind of helped us kind of think through some scenarios where it's become evident, okay, maybe this needs to be something on our radar. So the emotional ties, again, our dad was just so awesome. We're so thankful for the opportunities he provided us, and we were able to have that tribute. But now we're thinking, okay, what does make sense for a name? And so now we're grappling with that, and that's really hard.
I mean, I think a rebrand is always a huge undertaking. So I mean, kudos to you ahead of time. We were just talking about things coming up, and you said there wasn't anything coming up. That seems like a very big thing coming up.
Maybe because I'm trying to shove it to the side, because I'm like, okay, but that is something that we're and I think that's both how Andy and I operate. Right now, we're in that like sleeping on it phase, right? Like we're the dog walking phase, the in the shower phase, right? Or in the car driving, where we're it's kind of in the background and kind of hoping, trusting that maybe some answers will come together.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's exciting. And I mean, well, let's talk a little bit about the industry itself, because it's a relatively newer industry, even though I think people have been living a sober or being sober curious for a long time. So what is the industry like? Because we've seen alcohol-free bars or zero-proof bars come and go, and I feel like a lot of the really big name beverages, like what is it, Heineken has one as well, and so people are starting to be looking for it more in a way that brands are really paying attention. So what was it like entering the field, and what is the industry like now compared to when you started?
Well, first, I love to spend a moment on that phrase, sober curious, because I love it. As far as I know, Ruby Warrington out of the UK is who sort of coined that phrase years ago with her book, Sober Curious. And it was this idea of playing with the idea, like exactly that, like this idea of curious. Someone thinking like, okay, what if I didn't have a drink every night when I came home? Or what if I didn't overdo it every weekend, with my friends? Like, what would that look like? How would my life be different? And so I just love that phrase. So thank you for mentioning Sober Curious. But it is interesting that, in the store behind us, so many of these brands didn't even exist before the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And so what the research or the news stories point to is a lot of alcohol abuse during that time, where we sheltered in place, or we spent more time at home. It became evident a lot of people abused alcohol.
Right.
And I'd say myself included. I was sort of on a good path toward eliminating it, and then the pandemic came, and I know I definitely backslided on some of my habits around drinking. And so a lot of people would agree, like a lot of these brands, it's a reaction from that time in history. And so that's what's interesting about these too, is that so many of these brands, like this innovation, is all very recent.
Okay, I have no idea.
So yes, to be determined, right? Like who's gonna, as new brands come and brands, who's gonna stick around in the marketplace. But they're all like, the store couldn't have existed too long ago because a lot of this stuff just wasn't around.
Right. I would have never thought of that. I feel like I'm so surprised.
So Heineken is definitely would be considered the number one, or like the most widely available option in restaurants. Number one in terms of, sales availability. Certainly like the big news, this summer was that, massive investment with Athletic Brewing,
Mm-hmm.
that they, and I believe this is correct, they are the #1 selling beer at Whole Foods of all beers. I mean, with alcohol, and like the #1 selling beer.
I had no idea.
So Athletic, I mean, is crushing it, and that, a lot of name recognition. But for us, it's interesting. So yeah, beer. There's tons of beers. We don't even attempt to carry all of them, and that's what always blows people away. People come to the store and like, I had no idea, and I want to say this is still just like, this is just a cross section. This is just a small slice of what's available, because we have to pick and choose, and based on our customer preferences and our own. But yeah, like when I say exploded, the market has exploded, and it's been all very recent.
That's incredible. So will you remind me what year you were founded in?
2022. Okay.
So we're about almost at a halfway point of how long the industry has been as accessible as it has been. Trying to think of how to word this. What has that been like, seeing the ask for it from consumers, and then being someone who steps into that space?
Well, what we thought from the beginning, and maybe we were thinking too small at the beginning, was we thought that we were going to have to do a lot of education, like explain to people what we are. Well, now looking at that was silly. Like, people got it. Like, what's there to get? You know what I mean? Like, it's a store where the drinks are alcohol free, right? And so, because we thought we were just going to have to explain ourselves, or even find ourselves like defending ourselves, and it really wasn't the case. Now, I'm not saying that it's been this like perfectly smooth, right? All rainbows and unicorns, business story. But we were, because of social media and wonderful timing, which Andy, my business partners, who really pushed to open when we did. I was the one who's like, oh, come on, like we could, like, next year, let's just put a pin in that. We through social media following, and not even super social media savviness, I would say neither of us are. I mean, we do what we can. We were able to get enough. I mean, we had like a blowout opening weekend, and I think that was part of like, okay, maybe we're on, like, maybe like this is going to work. And what we find is it just, when we were starting the business, and you have to put together the plans and convince people to lease from them, we had to make all these reasons, we've got all these documents of like why this would potentially succeed. And part of that work was like creating a list. Okay, like who are the segments? Like, who would potentially be interested?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But then, so those folks, but then since we've opened, we've learned so many more reasons of why people come in. And again, some of them are very specific, but there are specific things I would have never thought of, that people want interesting drinks. And we feel like everyone's entitled to like fun, delicious, interesting drinks.
I love that. And something that doesn't like say outright, I'm not drinking alcohol, because like you said, the packaging is all so fun. And so I feel like you can take a 6-pack somewhere and maybe you are new to sober life, and it's because other decisions were made in the past, but you have something that you can still drink around people and not feel self-conscious around it. I feel like there's something so freeing about that, to be able to serve yourself in that way that doesn't make you feel uncomfortable when you're putting yourself first when you're
Absolutely. Someone introduced the phrase to us, social camouflage. Like, social camouflage. And then sometimes like the stakes are a little higher, like where we get this request a lot before the holidays. People who are pregnant but not ready to tell the world they're pregnant, right? And so they like they want something discreet, but they run their family or their social circles. Alcohol is a big part of that, and they're not ready. And so, I mean, that's part of like what we do. We go around the store and we look for things that are very much not obviously non-alcoholic. But that's a big part of us selecting items in the first place. We are we want things that social camouflage and that, again, look chic and cool, and that is very important.
That's so cool. And I think you're also in this unique position, because I think when people think about buyers, you're thinking more of clothing or retail. And I mean, this is retail, but what you're wearing. And so you are buyers in that regard of beverages in this space. What is that like when you vet other brands to bring into your brand? Because I mean, that's kind of a responsibility in its own. You're buying it and serving it to the people who come in, and they're trusting you.
Well, credit to Andy, my business partner, who's an incredible buyer. But I do have a couple thoughts on this. So again, I've made a really big deal about packaging. I'll say also, I'm really proud that a lot of our, you could say our shelves in many ways are crowdsourced. That really, when people say, hey, I had this brand, I was on vacation, or I've been ordering this brand, I'd rather buy it from you. Or I saw an ad, right? I mean, social media, like this feeds, would you be willing? So a lot of things we've purchased at customers' requests. And that makes me proud. I mean, like that, again, that we listen and we're responsive. And something that's been really cool about the space is most of these brands don't require a really significant minimum order. So we can order a case, right? Or 6 bottles or 12 bottles. See how it goes. And if it doesn't fly off the shelves, then maybe we don't reorder. So that's something I'm proud of. Another part to this buying has been what's really exploded as well are THC drinks, where Andy and I have made the decision for now that we're not pursuing them. Occasionally people will ask, and I would say, like, we could fill a whole other store with with THC drinks, Delta 8, Delta 9. One thing is we have a list of reasons. One of them is neither of us feel very knowledgeable, and that's important to us, like customer education, to be able to talk to our customers with confidence because they come with a lot of questions. And that is something that actually right now eliminates a lot of products that get pitched our way. That if they have THC, we don't. But at this point now, 2 years in, our wine shelves feel really good to us. So we're not as interested in picking up, like right now they're in a good space. These functional shelves at the front are always changing because people are always coming in wanting to know what's the latest, right? Whether it's with active ingredient or something that's potentially help with mood or relaxation or sleep. So those are sort of always switching out. And then, like I said with beer a moment ago, I mean, there's so many brands, and at what point it's like, okay, do we need 87 IPAs? And where I think the beer very much so is crowdsourced, where it's like just listening to folks, buying based on their buying patterns and what people are asking.
No, that's awesome. And then we've mentioned Andy a few times now. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about your co-founder? And
absolutely. So
I know she has a growing family at home, so we miss her dearly. But I'd love for everyone to get to know a little bit more about her as well.
So Andy, to her credit, is like even opening the store. She is like a true artist. She has been in her entire life, just with fashion, her home design, like someone who's just, I would joke, like on another planet. But she's always been she's a true visionary. And so she's always had this ability to see where culture is going, kind of where it's shifting. And I would say not necessarily like a couple steps ahead. She's always been like 40 steps ahead.
Oh, wow.
In terms of just, again, I don't want to say like trends, but like where culture shifts. And so she was really, I mean, if we really want to back up, she's the one who years ago introduced me to this idea of Sober Curious, which I didn't know, like that was a thing, that there were people out there writing about, women middle-aged or, women in their 30s and 40s saying, hey, maybe this alcohol isn't serving me. And so she introduced me to that. And then, and she had been on we both had very long Sober Curious journeys before committing full on to alcohol free. But she's the one who's like, no, like when we learned about this idea, because again, we sort of emulated a store in New York called Spirited Away, another one in Charleston called Sachet. And those were sort of like our mentor stores where we're like, okay, we were watching them, like, okay, that's what we want to do. And he was like, we're doing it. Like, we're doing it. Like, she was on the phone the next day with the commercial real estate. Like, she is the creative and now right now the creative person, I'm sort of like, I can get stuck in the details. But right now, a lot of her work is more like she does our QuickBooks and our operations. And she's really one who's, I say pushed us, or I say nudge, or maybe shoved us in some of the bigger decisions. We're like, I don't know. And now looking back, I'm like, okay, yeah, she had the, she had the guts for it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because I feel like often as entrepreneurs, we get stuck in that space of indecision, and it can be our downfall sometimes, because you'll never know if you don't do it, or if you like find out.
Well, that's something I'm really proud of. So since we, having, us being two sisters, co-founders, we have not let ourselves get paralyzed with decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Now, probably looking back, there are times where maybe we've decided too fast. But I'm really proud of that. Like in some ways where, you know, we didn't overthink the name of our store. Of course, now we're looking at a rebrand, but like, or even like the logo or some of the, like, even just like ordering furniture, stuff that where you could just get stuck.
Right.
We're like, all right, good enough, moving on. And I think some of that comes with age of, you know, that just like the ability to say, good enough, moving on. And so that's something looking back that I'm really proud of, that we've been swift decision makers.
I think it's awesome. I look at the space. I mean, you saw me. My jaw was on the floor when I came in. I thought this was, I still think it's so cool. I'm obsessed with this whole press and media wall you have. It's so cool to see how much you've accomplished and how much people are paying attention. I think that that is something that is so affirming. And I mean, you don't need anyone to tell you what an amazing job you're doing. But it's incredible to have people learn about it and want to learn about it. And you're not having to educate people, but you're creating a space where people can come ask questions if they have them, or wonder what does my life look like without all of this alcohol, or with maybe a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So it's incredible.
That means so much. And you know, we talked a little bit about like the idea of, you know, being on the defensive or people questioning. Honestly, we don't get it that much. So we have these 2 stores on Carmel. Neither is like a high traffic area. It's not where, you know, a bustling sidewalk where people are, you know, wandering, and it's not a mall. Right. People drive here with the intention to buy drink. Like they come here ready to ask questions and buy drinks. And so the people who come in our door want to be here. Yeah. So it's very, now granted, we have to work hard to get people in the door. So I mean, there's a flip side, but it's nice because when people come in, oh my God, we just have the most wonderful customers. And you know, again, full of questions, and we hear life stories and confessions. And you know, sometimes people say, well, how long? Like, how long did it take you? And it took me, you know, years to go 100%. And
that's okay.
It's okay. Yes. And the vulnerability, I'm incredibly honored that people would feel comfortable sharing their stories with us.
That is so special. Well, that kind of leads me into one of our last questions. How do you inspire yourself?
I am a huge reader. So, you know, I told my story about getting my master's degree in library science, and that's where I've really dedicated my career up till this business is public libraries, school libraries. I've taught higher ed, IUPUI.
Cool. Go Jags.
I love Jags. Department of Library Science, and I've served on boards with the Hamilton Public Library and the Carmel Library. So I guess this is all just to say that like libraries and reading has been a big part of my life, and reading fiction is really how I get inspired. You know, people say, I don't want to read fiction. I want to read to learn. Like I read fiction to learn. I think, you know, to learn about insights and how do people think. And I think absolutely you learn about different parts of the world, and learn just about different human conditions through fiction. So I always challenge people who say that they don't learn through fiction, but I'm a huge fiction reader. It has slowed down a bit since opening the business, but that's been one of my goals, is to get back in that regular cadence, because that really is just something that I'm committed to practicing every day if I can. And fiction reading, but again, also that's been a big part of my business journey, reading everything I can about, you know, other entrepreneur stories, you know, best practices and how to grow our business, as well as the latest on why choose an alcohol-free lifestyle. I always say, like, a lot of this research around being alcohol-free, like, you can't unlearn it. Right. And once you read it, right? Like, and so, you know, just making sure that you know, whether some of those negative effects or what the general conversation is around health and alcohol, making sure I'm up to date.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So reading.
I love it. And they say that when you read fiction, you grow your empathetic muscle because you're hearing from all these different perspectives. So there's definitely so much learning to be had from fiction reading.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. So you're talking about staying up to date with what's happening in the industry. How can we stay up to date with you and all things Loren's AF?
Probably the best way is through Instagram. Drink Loren's AF. That's our Instagram. We are also on LinkedIn, Loren's Alcohol-Free Beverages, but Instagram and LinkedIn would be the best way.
Perfect. And is there an email newsletter?
There is a newsletter. So if you go to our website, lorensaf.com, at the bottom of every page, subscribe to the newsletter. It comes out every other week. Customers tell us they enjoy it. But really, we just share a little bit about what's going on, upcoming events, product releases, tasting events. We have a lot of fun putting it together.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing time with me, and we'll be heading over to our Patreon to dig deeper, and so we'll catch you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Arianna.